Good evening. We are now in session at the Town Hall meeting for April the 15th at 7 p.m. Commissioner Rutledge,
Here.
Commissioner Chismar,
Here.
Commissioner Taylor,
Here.
Commissioner Chance.
Here.
All right. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The approval of the agenda is next on our agenda. So do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that we approve the agenda for this evening's meeting.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No? Mr. Krantz?
For approval of this evening's agenda, April 15th, 2024, Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The agenda is approved.
Thank you. Next up is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that we lay the approval of the minutes on the table to provide for further inspection.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Chismar. Any discussion? All right, Mr. Krantz?
Yes, to not approve this evening's minutes, Commissioner Chismar, or Commissioner Rutledge, I'm sorry,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes for March 26th and the 1st are be reviewed again and introduced later.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. We are now at the point where we will be having the public hearing on Resolution 1227-24, the Town Administrator's Fiscal Year 2025 budget, and I believe we're going to have a presentation from Ms. Moody.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. I'm just going to wait a few minutes for, Michael is going to advance the slides for me this evening. So we're just going to focus on the general fund tonight.
Okay.
At the second public hearing, we'll focus on the two enterprise funds and the special revenue fund. So we're going to review expenditures first, general fund, and then we're going to review revenues second.
Don't lean back too far.
So as I mentioned, we're going to discuss the budget highlights for the general fund for the fiscal year 2025 budget. Next slide. So fiscal year 25, we're proposing a budget of $19,445,128, which is an increase of $964,113, or 5.2% from the fiscal year 24 budget. As you can see from the pie chart, public safety, really not quite the lion's share of the budget, but it is pretty close to general government as well. So public safety is going to be the police department, as well as a few public safety items such as the red light camera, hydrant rental, and the Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company. General government is next at 32.3% of the pie, if you will. So those are going to be really your other departments such as legal, town administrator, finance, economic development, planning, human resources, technology. Public Works is going to be next on your left-hand side of the pie chart at 24.5%. So these will be all four divisions within the Public Works department. And then the rest of them are 3% or lower. Next slide. So the way I've broken up the budget presentation this evening is pretty much how we've been doing it for the last several years. And we broke it down between salaries and benefits, expenses, capital, debt service, and committees. So for salaries and benefits, in total, just a little over 11.9 million, which is about $554,000 higher than fiscal year 24. It does include funding for a merit increase for all employees, both full-time and part-time, as well as a proposed 3.5% cost of living increase, which would equate to $341,000. From the perspective of personnel, we're proposing to add a second full-time custodian in town buildings and no longer contract out for our custodian work, which this person would take place of. Increase hours for our part-time file clerk in the Human Resources Administration Department, and add a part-time inspector in the administrative department or section of Public Works. Within the police department, we're proposing to transition various positions. The first one is a sworn officer to a civilian position titled Logistics and Certification Specialist. The second one is a sergeant position to a lieutenant. And the third one is deputy chief to a major. Just as a reminder that we also look at salaries and benefits as a percentage of the total general fund expenditures. We need to exclude ARPA for that because that's just a one-off, so it really would skew that percentage if we left it in. You always want to be very cognizant of this percentage, not allowing it to get out of control or in the high 70s, low 80s is something that we want to be on the lookout for. But it's very comparable to fiscal year '24. It's actually come down just slightly from 70.4 to 70.2. So still very much within reason as a percentage of the total general fund expenditures. Next slide. So still within the salaries and benefits section, medical insurance is a very large part of the budget. The town will continue to offer only a high deductible health plan with an HSA in fiscal year '25. There was actually no change in our rate from fiscal year '24, so another year of 0% health care increases, which is amazing. The town is proposing to continue to pay 100% of the premiums, as well as continuing to contribute 35% of the deductible to the employee's HSA health savings account. With regard to the pension, we do have two separate defined benefit pension plans. We contribute, meaning the town contributes 8.7% of base pay to the civilian plan and 9.4% of the sworn officer plan. The employees also have a required contribution into both DB plans. Next slide. Moving on to just general expenses, again, that don't really fall into those categories that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Fiscal year '25, about $3,160,000. Compared to a little over 2.9 million, or a change of about $200,000. And what I've listed here is just some of the highlights. So this isn't everything in the expense category, but items such as building maintenance, it's $129,000. Utilities, we're spending $122,000. The gas and diesel fuel between the Public Works and the Police Department equates to $178,000. Our legal services, approximately $140,000. Technology, $349,000. Our general insurance with Legit is $195,000. Our red light camera program, almost $202,000. And then when you look, again, remembering from that chart, where the majority of the expenses are in the Police Department and Public Works. So what do their general expenses look like? So the Police Department, it's almost $380,000. The Public Works Department, again, those four divisions are about $878,000. And then the MS4 program for stormwater management is at $140,000. Next slide. Moving on to capital improvements. So again, this is throughout the entire general fund budget. It's at $3,368,000, almost $193,000 increase from fiscal year '24. And so I'm just going to go, I'm going to discuss what department they're in and just hit the highlights, not getting too much in the weeds as to what exactly the project encompasses. So within the Armory Department, there are 2 projects equating to $50,000, both being proposed to come from the capital reserve. The first one is the hot water heater and circulation system replacement at $35,000, and new dimmable lights for the auditorium at $15,000. Within the town buildings, again, coming from the capital reserve is 3 projects equating to $100,000. The first one is the Public Works planning entry door replacement at $15,000. In Public Works, the overhead door and operator replacement project at $60,000, and in Rockfield Manor, the barn improvement at $25,000. Next slide. Within the Planning and Zoning Department, there is proposed $2,267,000 in capital improvements, with $2,165,000 coming from ARPA, $25,000 coming from the capital reserve, and the rest being funded from the current year revenues. First project is Homestead Park, which will fund new playground equipment at $80,000, as well as upgrade to the rubberized material, which will enable handicap access at $200,000. Both of those projects being proposed to come from ARPA. The Burns Alley funding for engineering and construction associated with improvements, again along Burns Alley, which is based on a fiscal year 22 concept, at a total of $585,000, with that entire project being funded from ARPA. Plumtree Park there's 2 pieces to this. So it's funding a CPP grant match of $50,000 to complete the upgrades in that park, as well as upgrade to that same rubberized material as Homestead Park at $300,000. So a little bit more expensive in that park, more to do. So the total with that park, $350,000, with only $300,000 coming from ARPA. Next slide. Yes, Thomas George Street funding is the next project for the improvement of Thomas Street between Bond and Kelly, the upgrade of George Street between Kelly and Plumtree Park. This project is estimated at $1 million, with funding coming from ARPA. The wayfinding graphics funding for the gateway identification along Conowingo Road, the replacement of the Public Works planning ID sign, and the town logo in the rotunda interior is at $25,000. That is the sole project being proposed to come from the capital reserve. The police department has $204,500 worth of capital, or $169,500 coming from ARPA. We have 3 vehicle replacements that equate to the ARPA amount of $169,500. We do expect to sell those 3 vehicles and through Gov Deals, and hopefully bring in a total of $15,000. The other project that's being proposed is to lease a real-time remote surveillance camera trailer. That is $35,000, and that's would come from current year revenues. Next slide. Moving on to the miscellaneous department, there's just 1 line item there, and per our capital reserve policy, we are proposing to transfer $20,000 to that capital reserve. In the Public Works Department, within streets and highways, $680,000 is proposed, with 5 street construction projects at $335,000, 1 curb ramp construction project at $10,000, and then 3 vehicles, 2 pickup trucks and a leaf vac truck, which are all proposed to be funded through ARPA. Again, being the current vehicles now would be sold through Gov Deals, and you can see what we expect to receive from those sales. Next slide. All right, so now moving on to debt service from capital reserve. Just a very slight change, $2,600. Basically, the reason for that is we haven't taken any new debt in '24, but we're also not expecting to take on any new debt in '25. The first one there is $134,180. Again, it represents principal and interest payments on vehicles and equipment purchases from 20 to 21. Financings are made on a 7-year maturity, and those rates are extremely low, 1.08 to 1.89. $75,927 is the principal and interest payments on the debt to finance the various energy-saving projects that are related to the Johnson Control contract. The financing is a 15-year term at 2.79%. And the savings, or the energy savings, is paying the debt service, essentially. So it's not coming from current year revenues. The last project is really the one that has changed between 24 and 25, and that's the principal and interest payments on the Police Department Town Hall renovation expansion project. The financing is a 30-year term at 2.673%. Next slide. So moving on to community support, there are various areas in the budget that you'll find our community support. It will total $391,000, so an $11,000 increase from fiscal year -- You can see the largest ones are the Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company at almost 170, Parks and Rec at 102, Appearance and Beautification Committee at almost 40,000. Wanted to mention that besides physical money going out the door to these various organizations, the town does provide a large amount of in-kind community support to the Alliance, to Rockfield, to the Independence Day Committee, and some other nonprofits, but those are the 3 large ones where staff does provide, again, that community support. Next slide. So moving on to revenues from expenditures now. Different looking chart, but same numbers. Still a 5.2% increase, still a change of $964,000 because we're required to have a balanced budget. So if you look at the pie chart, you'll see on the right-hand side, that large blue section is property taxes at 49.3%. So that tells us how important our property taxes are to us. Not just real property, but also personal property. Again, extremely important to the town. The purple is going to be our grants at 21.2%, which really took over as second place to the state shared taxes, which generally is right behind property taxes. ARPA is driving the grants percentage and really making state shared taxes take a back seat, but still fairly close. The other ones are small, but they are still important pieces of the budget. Next slide. So property taxes, as I mentioned, very important to the town at almost $9.6 million. Our real property tax rate is proposed to remain the same at 54 cents per 100. It equates to a 3% increase. It is the second year of the triennial reassessment phase for real property. On the other hand, personal property tax rate, again, we're proposing to remain the same at $1.20 per $100 of assessed value. And I did want to mention that our ordinary business corps is being reduced from fiscal year 24 to 25 due to a change in the minimum State Department of Assessments and Taxation depreciation rates. Within the state shared budget piece of the pie, it's at $3.2 million. The 3 pieces of that are income taxes, which were projected to increase 2% or to almost $2.2 million. And I know we've had some discussions on this line item. So again, the fiscal year 24 budget was low. It is now estimated to be $2,150,000. Highway user, We received that $720,478 estimate directly from State Highway. And then the police protection grant, we don't receive an estimate from the state on that. It is, and I can see the crest is hiding a little bit of those numbers. So it's changed. It's $271,000 and change. But we typically don't receive an estimate. So what we do is we're budgeting fiscal year '25 what we received in fiscal year '24. So basically flat funding. In license and permits at $252,500. The largest piece within that section is the cable TV franchise, which is a 3% franchise fee from both Verizon and Comcast. We are seeing this being reduced every single year. We're losing more and more franchise fees on this, so I just wanted to mention that. Next slide. Moving on to grants, at $4.1 million, the Harford County tax rebate increased just a little over $5,000. Again, that's based on a Harford County formula that's been in existence for a very long time. That is at $1.2 million. ARPA, as I mentioned, is the driver for grants. $2,664,000 is the budgeted amount, which is based on projects that are currently under review for the fiscal year '25. And then we have the Harford County Stormwater Management is based on an MOU, which distributes county funds to assist in our stormwater management obligations, and that is $140,000, which is the exact dollar amount. If you remember, I mentioned the MS4 expense within the operating expenses. The miscellaneous interest in the fine category of revenues equates to about $1.3 million. Some of the highlights there are our armory rental fees at $97,000, our red light camera fines of $581,000, our reimbursable police and public works overtime of almost $58,000, and then our interest on investments is estimated at $500,000. Our local government investment pool rate, which is a very safe money market where the majority of the town's money lies, and I honestly don't know of a municipality or a county that does not have something invested in the LGIP as we know it. And then we have multiple CD rates throughout the town at different banks, as well as a CDARS program with a current bank, which allows us to invest in CDs across the country. Those rates run from 3% to 5.5 with terms of 9 to 25 months. Next slide. The transfer from capital reserve is $175,000. So I mentioned several of these in detail on the expense side, but basically as a summary, $50,000 from Armory, $100,000 from town buildings, and $25,000 from planning. And then lastly, our transfer from parking and sewer funds is budgeted at $703,000. These two line items are to reimburse the general fund for employees' salaries, benefits, and overhead that are attributable to operating those enterprise funds, because you have to remember, you want to look at those enterprise funds as businesses. They should be self-sustaining, and the majority, if not all, except for the two employees who are 100% charged to the sewer fund, the rest of that is all really housed in the general fund. So this would be if parking and sewer were really a business on their own, they would have to pay for these types of expenses. So that's all I have to present this evening on the general fund, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Moody?
Just briefly, you mentioned the continuous decrease in the cable franchise. Is that due to the rise of streaming and just less revenue being brought in from
Yes.
by cable?
I don't know that for 100% sure, but yes, that's what I would attribute it to.
Any additional questions? I have one or two, Ms. Moody.
Sure.
Between the merit and the COLA increases for employees, could you give me some average of how much individually? Does it total 9%, 7%, 5%?
I may have to get back to you.
Okay, no
on
problem, that's
that.
fair.
I do not have that with me, and I don't want to take a guess
I don't want you to guess. I know it's a math question and there's an answer somewhere.
But I can, in a fiscal year where we didn't have changes with positions, meaning adding positions and transitioning positions, it would be a very clear-cut answer. But I will get back to you on all that.
Thank you. And secondly, will this be posted? I would like this to be posted on the web, and if you could email your presentation to us.
I can.
All right,
I can.
And-
And Mr. Krantz can help me with getting it on the
I'm
website,
sure
for sure.
he'll be very helpful with that. And lastly, how much do the employees contribute to the defined benefit plan,
Sure.
the law enforcement and the civilian?
Yep, civilian contributes 5.9%, and the sworn contribute 10%.
Okay, and my last question is, Sergeant Farrell, could you relay to the chief that I would like to see, if he could email to all of us, the organizational chart, both pre these changes and post these changes for the police department? Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, I emailed that to you at 6 PM this evening.
Well, there you go. I will read it. Thank you. All right, anything further on this particular? It is actually a public hearing, so do we have anyone that would like to address the budget? No? All right. In that case, we will close that public hearing. Move on to the next item on our agenda, which is Resolution 1228-24, fiscal year 2025 budget, tentative budget. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that proposed resolution number 1228-24, providing for the adoption of a tentative budget for the town of Bel Air for fiscal year 2025, be adopted by the Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And Ms. Moody?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I don't have anything further to add to that. We are just basically shifting, you all are shifting from the town administrator's budget to your working tentative budget. There are no changes to the tentative budget, so unless you all have any other questions, I don't have anything else to provide.
Anything further from the commissioners?
Madam Chair, yes. I have a motion. Madam Chair, I move to amend Resolution 1228-24, fiscal year 2025 tentative budget as follows. Remove from the capital projects of planning and zoning the Burns Alley project as set forth in line 1-1435-0808 of the budget detail. Increase the expenses of economic development by $3,500 by changing the mainstream marketing budget as set forth in line 1-1436-0317 of the budget detail from $16,500 to $20,000. Increase the volunteer fire company contribution under public safety by $5,000 by changing the contribution for the Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company as set forth in line 1-1460-0280 of the budget detail from $169,889 to $174,889. And add the following notation to line 1-1470-0514, equipment and firearms of the budget detail of the police department, quote, $8,500 from ARPA to fund salaries / benefits to enable those funds to assist in paying for these, unquote.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. Discussion amongst the board?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may, just provide some perspective. The the charter provides that we can, you know, add, amend, delete, remove, I've got the language here, at this juncture before we, at the tentative budget juncture, and I recognize that traditionally the amendments have come the final night of the passage of the budget, but since we have a lot of requests in the budget on different capital projects to be funded from ARPA money, and there are presentations to be had and made with regard to the Department of Public Works and potential significantly expensive upgrades to our sewer system. Looking at everything over in our past work sessions, it's clear to me that the wish list for the dedication of the ARPA money far exceeds by millions of dollars the ARPA money that will be available. So that is why tonight I wanted to kick it off with a motion to remove the Burns Alley project, because as nice of a project as it sounds like it could be, my focus, and I think the benefit of the people of Bel Air, has to be in infrastructure and public safety. Those two things have to be the case, and we don't have unlimited ARPA funds. So I've looked at that project. We first got some orientation to it during our orientation as commissioners, et cetera, and I feel like this project at $585,000 doesn't make the cut in my view. It's a clear cut out, and so that's why I'm proposing it, so we can start to winnow down this list, so we can narrow down the hard work that engaging in this tough, hard work of saying no to some projects and yes to others. So now with regard to my other changes, it may seem like, you know, $3,500 is a small tweak at this point, but with regard to the Main Street marketing budget in economic development, the $20,000 was the request of the Downtown Alliance. You know, this is such a crucial part of what goes on here, and we've talked about this time and time again. The marketing aspect, to me, as an entrepreneur, has made or broke businesses. And I feel like we can do that. We can fully fund that at $20,000. With regard to the Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company, they made, you know, a couple presentations. The fact is, this force is absolutely essential. We look around left and right across the news, we see, you know, bad things happen, either acts of nature or acts of malignant actors, and just everyday life happens to people, and we're so dependent upon that. And so I am requesting the $5,000 increase to bring it just a few dollars short of the $175,000 that the fire department has requested. I completely and totally support that. It would be great if we had even more money to support our fire company with, as far as I'm concerned. And so that's big in my priority, and the constituents that I talked to as I went door to door across this town and through my law practice, people in and out of my office, it is a #1 priority for them. So it's a small increase. I wanted to get it out on the table tonight. And then and as to the notation that I'm suggesting be added, by using $8,500 of ARPA money to funds, to commit that to salaries and benefits under the police department firearms acquisition, I thought it's a good way to dedicate $8,500 and hopefully, you know, free up that $8,500 to fund the $3,500 and the $5,000 changes I'm proposing. So that's my perspective. I am grateful for the second this evening. I look forward to the conversation as the process moves forward. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Just a discussion on the process here. There are a couple questions. So there was, basically, Mr. Rutledge made Commissioner Rutledge made about 3 additions, or 3 corrections or changes to the budget. Would those be addressed individually as we approve these motions, or is that a package deal?
Not in the manner they were moved.
Exactly.
I would say in the manner that they were moved, it is one motion.
It is one motion.
Now, the board could make a motion to separate out the changes, that would be in order, but the way the item that we have
Right.
before us is a whole.
It's a whole,
Yeah.
right.
Procedurally, I think it's necessary at this juncture to provide a little advice to the Board of Town Commissioners for what it's worth. You have a duty to protect the health, safety, and well-being of the residents of the town of Bel Air. Your other duty is to pass a balanced budget. At all times, that budget must be passed. It's my understanding in discussing the matter with the town administrator and the director of finance that based on the amendments proposed by Commissioner Rutledge, the budget will not be balanced. That causes a great deal of issues with respect to your finances as far as grants, and it jeopardizes your auditing. So I just wanted to put that out for the commissioners to consider. That is a duty. At all times, your budget must be balanced. You don't have a choice. It's required.
Right.
So based on his amendments, it will not be budget. It will not be balanced.
Lisa, could you,
Yes, thank you. So before we received this paper, the email that we received, to me anyway, it wasn't clear how everything was coming together. So the discussion that I had with the town administrator before the meeting was just based on that email. This provides a little bit better insight into those amendments. It's clear as to how the Alliance and the Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company are being funded. Essentially, the idea is to, you have a $62,000 line item in the police department for equipment, firearms, and of that $62,000, we're removing $8,500 of it to be funded from current year revenues. It's now going to be funded with ARPA, which is freeing up current year revenues to fund the 2 increases to the Alliance and the fire company. So with the clarification on this paper that we were handed right before the meeting, it is a balanced budget.
thank you. That obviously is the most important clarification, and so I'm glad that we could make that
Yes,
at
it is.
the top of the discussion. I just had a few questions for Commissioner Rutledge. The first is on the deletion of the Burns Alley project, and the second is on the funding mechanism for the two organizations to which we contribute. The first is why the specific deletion of the Burns Alley project. You know, Burns Alley is about $500,000, and there are, I believe, roughly $2.4 million worth of projects that we have to cut from the ARPA budget. So just a little more clarity on why that one now, as opposed to, you know, trying to get through the whole 2.4 million or waiting, would be helpful. And then my second question is, what is your proposal for, you know, next year, the budget for the Alliance and the Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company? Are you proposing that we sort of do what we did a few years ago and say this is a one-time boost, or is it your intention to try to keep these funding levels? So those would be my two questions.
Certainly. I'll take your last question first, if you don't mind. I say this is an isolated year. This is absolutely an isolated year. Don't intend for that to be something that they can rely upon every year. The budget circumstances are dramatically different, and just the small dedication of a small amount of ARPA money gives them a little boost and gives them the recognition of the great value that they lend to the community. So that was my thinking on that. Sure. And as to the Burns Alley project, I wanted to kick that off first because of the projects that I've looked at, in my view, and talking to other constituents, that there's strong feelings in the community among my constituents that the Burns Alley project should be really the first thing to go. So that's why I brought it up that way. Yeah.
The only thing really that I have to say this evening is that I feel like we have a lot of work to do on this budget. And I really am not in favor of doing this amendment at this time, because we have a lot more work to do, a lot more other things to consider. And we can certainly look at it later, but I think doing it this evening is premature.
I know you and I have had some conversations, Commissioner Rutledge, about the Burns Alley project. And the Burns Alley project of $585,000 is certainly something that I cannot really support. I would support a refresh of Burns Alley, a sprucing up of Burns Alley, but something considerably less than the $585,000 that is currently budgeted for. I know that the meetings that I attended with the business people in town, they were very, very much opposed to this project. They're very concerned about their back alley access, their deliveries, that sort of thing. And I appreciate that, but I know it's also important to the Downtown Alliance and to the ECDC to do something with Burns Alley so there can be more of a connection, a bigger space for events, to put vendors back there. And I think that is a consideration as well. I mean, I think that's a great idea. It's just the $585,000 that gives me heartburn. As far as fully funding the Downtown Alliance, and it's hard to disagree with that. I do agree with Commissioner Chance, we have a lot more work to do on this. And the Volunteer Fire Company, they are being buffeted by forces that are really beyond their control, and I feel for them. They have had a budgeting scheme for years, a fundraising scheme for years that now has been changed through no fault of their own. But the growth in the county, the inability to really staff very well, volunteer EMS ambulances has caused a great change, and they are suffering for it. So I appreciate that. I couldn't say I'm really against any of these changes, but I think, as you and I discussed, we need to really sit down and look at all the ARPA projects and pick and choose and prioritize. And I would say that Burns Alley is not going to survive at the $585,000 mark at all. But I think that we need, as we discussed at your suggestion, either a specific additional meeting just for ARPA, or to make one of our currently scheduled budget meetings only, not our meetings that are a town hall meeting or a work session for other purposes, but just our budget meetings, to designate that the ARPA evening, and we can really put our heads together and see what we want to do with that money. It's a one-time only shot. We have to spend it wisely. I tend to lean in your direction that we should do it on capital projects like pumping stations and things that are going to be around for years and years, and that are things that really, you can't have any quality of life if that is not working. If we don't have Burns Alley, done at $585,000, the town will still run, but the pumping stations would have to be addressed no matter what. So that being said, would you like a vote on this evening? Would you prefer to table it until we have some further information?
I would, if it's appropriate, to make a motion to lay the motion on the table. Is that appropriate?
Yes.
All right, there you go. So,
I'll second that.
Thank you.
all right. And Mr. Krantz?
This is the vote to lay Commissioner Rutledge's motion to amend Resolution 1228-24 on the table for potential future consideration. Commissioner Rutledge.
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Chance.
Aye.
And Chair Edding.
Aye.
The motion is laid on the table.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. Next up is ordinance 828-24, amending the Bel Air Town Code, Chapter 246, Historic
Chair.
Yes.
I apologize for the interruption. We still need a vote on the acceptance of the budget. You've
You've
laid the motion on the table.
I'm so sorry.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, we do need to vote on the budget. All right, Mr. Krantz?
This is to vote on the proposed resolution 1228-24, the tentative budget for fiscal year 2025, not amended. Commissioner Rutledge.
Present.
What's that?
Commissioner Rutledge?
I can't
Oh.
abstain?
You can abstain.
Okay, all
Oh.
right, so a nay. That's a nay then.
Nay. All right.
I'm
Commissioner
sorry.
Chismar?
We are voting on,
To accept the tentative budget, Resolution 1228-24.
oh, okay. Aye.
Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Chance?
Aye.
And Chair Edding.
Aye.
The motion passes for Resolution 1228-24, 4-1.
Just as a point of order, an abstention is an order, is it not?
An extension, I mean, I don't think you can abstain. I'd have to double check the code, but I don't think so.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry, Jane. I don't think you can abstain. I'd have to check it. But, I mean, an aye or a nay is going to be needed for a budget, I would think.
Actually, Mr. Taylor, Commissioner, I thought you said present.
That's what you said is
I-
present.
I did say present,
Right,
but
present-
I'm
Present is the word
obviously-
used for an abstention.
Oh,
in
gotcha.
Robert's Rules of Order.
Never
Yeah,
heard
I-
of
that.
I-
That's an
I-
order.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I was just following what I was familiar with
Sorry,
Robert's rules of
wasn't familiar with that
passage.
terminology. My apologies.
Okay.
Okay.
So the way that, votes are tallied are among those who are present and voting, so the member who abstains technically isn't casting an abstention vote, they're refusing to vote, and so they mark their presence by saying present, and that is signifying the body of their intention not to vote on the item. But obviously, if the code says something different, that would overrule that point of parliamentary procedure.
No, respectfully, in our history, that's the first time that I've heard the word present used,
Yeah,
so
oh,
I
sure.
apologize.
There-
No, lesson
Understood.
learned, I apologize, I just not heard it used in that context before.
Understood. Yeah, I understand.
I mean, I've read minutes where other commissioners voted present. I could share them with you, you know.
My experience.
Okay, all right.
I'm not being argumentative, I'm just
But-
saying it was my experience.
See, unless our code, I would think, says you cannot vote present, we're governed by Robert's rules.
Correct.
We are.
And this is just a motion on a tentative budget, and I wanted to vote present because I'm largely in support of this budget and think it's a fantastic job, but I do not want to go on the record voting for a tentative budget with Burns Alley in it. So that's why I wanted to vote present. So I don't know if we need a ruling whether I'm permitted to change that vote to present, that's my first vote, or whether, if I'm not allowed to, I'd like some guidance on that.
Madam Chair, I stand corrected. It was a learning moment. I've not heard the word present. I'm not questioning the commissioner's integrity or his ability to vote present or abstain. I'm just stating I'd never heard it before, and my apologies to the council for my misunderstanding. Whatever works for Commissioner Rutledge, ma'am, works for me. I apologize for the misunderstanding.
And I'm going to ask Commissioner Taylor, since he's already cast a nay vote.
An aye vote. Yes. I'm going to move to reconsider the vote,
Second.
and so we're going to have to vote on the motion to
Correct.
reconsider.
All right. Mr. Krantz, we're going to have to vote on the motion to reconsider the vote. We'll wait for
Just
you to catch up.
keeping track, hold on a
That's
second.
okay. We'll wait for you to catch up.
Taking notes. This is to retract the?
No, so this is
Reconsider.
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 So the previous motion remains in the minutes. It is still a formal action of the board. What the board is now doing is reconsidering the vote so as to erase that action that we just took and allow for further
The-
deliberation.
Erase the table or to
apologies.
erase the,
To
proposed
nullify,
resolution.
the vote that we just took.
On the
tentative
budget.
On the budget, on
On
the
the
tentative
budget.
budget, and allow for
Tentative
further deliberation and another vote, is what the motion to reconsider does.
okay. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
Okay. I'll now
Passed.
call the question on the resolution to 1228 so that we can move to a vote on that.
That needs a second then.
So,
Yeah, I'm
Right.
just asking that we vote on resolution 1228. on
Right.
the
Okay.
tentative
Okay.
basis.
I
Yeah.
thought you said 1220, and I wasn't
No,
sure what
sorry,
that was.
1228.
Okay. All right.
okay, and I'll give him a second. We need a second?
Yes. Okay.
Taylor
Thank you.
and Chismar. This is for the reconsideration of Resolution 1228-24 to approve the tentative budget for fiscal year 2025. Commissioner Rutledge,
Present.
Commissioner Chismore,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
1228 is passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 828-24, amending the Bel Air Town Code, Chapter 246, Historic Preservation. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that ordinance number 828-24, revising Chapter 246, Historic Preservation, be received by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second?
All right, and I believe Mr. Small?
Yes. Historic preservation in local governments enabled through legislation found in Title 8 of the Land Use Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland. This article in part provides for appeals of Historic Preservation Commission decisions as being the same process as the Planning Commission, which is, shouldn't say to circuity court, it should say circuit court. The following changes to Chapter 246, Historic Preservation of the Code, were reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning Commission. Clarification of Section 246-09, outlining that any designated historic property owner can appeal a decision of the Historic Preservation through Circuit Court of Hartford County. This action will require the Historic Preservation Commission to keep an audio record and adopt updated powers and duties to keep all applicable regulations current. The staff recommends ordinance 828-24, amending section 246-9, historic preservation, be received by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners. And I believe, Mr. Krantz, we're looking at a public hearing on this, on the what?
On May 6th.
On
the
May
next-
6th.
The next town hall
Yeah.
meeting, because of
Normally
the
that
extra
skips
week.
a
yeah.
meeting, but since we have a week that we don't have a meeting, so it would be May 6th. That's all I've got.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Small? All right, I do have a motion to amend the ordinance. On page 1, towards the bottom, where it says the Bel Air Town Code is hereby amended to clarify the need for a quorum in section 246-09, I think it should read, the Bel Air Town Code is hereby amended to clarify the right to appeal in section 246-09.
Okay, I see that. Thank you.
Okay. And then
I would second that amendment.
Thank you. We'll wait for Mr. Krantz to catch up with us. He is earning his
So this
his
is
salary tonight, yes.
a motion to amend ordinance 828-24 to change the last section from a need for a quorum to the right to appeal. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismore,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The ordinance is amended.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? I should have taken public comment before. Next is ordinance 829-24, amending the Bel Air Town Code, Chapter 165, Article 2, Article 5, and Article 12, Historic Preservation. Do I have a motion? This is
Madam- yeah.
829-24.
Madam Chair, I move that ordinance number 829-24, revising Town Code, Chapter 165, Article 2, Article 5, and Article 12, related to historic preservation, be received by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. Is there anyone that wishes to make any public comment on this piece of legislation?
Mr. Small, did you have anything to add?
Just to clarify, it's 165. Everything else is basically the same.
Thank you. Any discussion amongst the board? This is the corresponding piece to the
Right.
first section that we've amended. Mr. Krantz?
Yes, to vote on receipt of ordinance 829-24 for public hearing and vote, potential vote on the 6th. This would be for Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
Ordinance 829-24 is received.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
could I just interrupt for a point of order? Just, we voted on your motion to amend the first one.
Correct.
Did we vote to receive?
We voted to receive, I thought, the amended.
Yes.
It was combined in one. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that,
Exactly.
yeah, okay.
Ms. Thompson?
Yeah, you're amending the motion, so one vote is all you need.
Yeah,
Proceed, yeah.
you voted to receive the amended ordinance. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
It has been a complicated evening.
Yeah.
All right, this one will be easy. It's public announcements. The Cultural Arts Commission will meet at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, April the 17th, in the second floor conference room in the Bel Air Armory. There is a friendly reminder that the Harford County Education Foundation Plein Air Painting and Art Exhibition is scheduled for this week at the Armory. The ticketed VIP reception will be Friday, April 19th from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. Visit harfordeducation.org/art-exhibition to purchase tickets and sponsorships. The art exhibition, featuring artwork created by Harford County Public School students, runs from 1 to 4 p.m. on Saturday, April the 20th. This is free to the public with art activities for families, plus the first 100 children get free mini art kits. The Bel Air Downtown Alliance will host its spring community cleanup event, the Bel Air Cleanup Day, on Saturday, April 20th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. That does not seem right. I think that is a typo. I'm thinking maybe from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. You can visit the Alliance's website, downtownbelair.com, or their social media pages for more information and to check the times of that event and to sign up. On Saturday, April 20th, there will also be the Farmers Market from 8 to 12, and from 9 to 11:30, there will be a walk in her shoes, sponsored by SARC at Main Street, and at approximately 11 or 11:30 a.m., the Bel Air Rec Council Baseball Opening Day ceremonies will be held at Bel Air High School. The Historic Preservation Commission meets Thursday, April 25th at 6 p.m. at Town Hall. The Board of Town Commissioners budget work sessions will continue on Tuesday, April 23rd at 4:30 p.m. here in Town Hall. There will be additional work sessions on April the 30th, May the 9th, and May the 14th, all at 4:30 p.m. in Town Hall. Members of the public can attend in person or watch via live stream on the Town of Bel Air, Maryland YouTube channel, or watch the recording later at their convenience. First Fridays, hosted by the Downtown Alliance, will begin on May the 3rd from 5 to 8 p.m. First Fridays, which include live music, food and drink, vendors, and activities for children, happens on the first Friday of every month from May through October in the parking lot next to Das Beer Hall on Main Street. Visit the Alliance website or social media pages for more information. There's still time to reserve your space at one or all three lectures in the Songwriter Centenary series that starts Monday, May 6th at the Armory. This is an opportunity to learn about the composers of popular music in 1924, Irving Berlin, George and Ira Gershwin, and Cole Porter. The sessions take place on May 6th, May 13th, and May 20th, all from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Admission is free, and you can reserve your spot online at belairarmory.org. Did we miss anything? Any additional? Okay. In that case, public comments. Is there any member of the public here this evening that wishes to make a comment on anything not limited to the items that were on this evening's agenda? Yes, sir. You have to state your name and address for the record.
So, yes, David Anderson, Town of Bel Air, 39 North Hickory Avenue, and I apologize, Mayor, I apologize for the typo on the downtown cleanup. It goes from 10 a.m. To 1 p.m. I think.
There you go.
had
I
an
guessed it right.
Extra zero. So, yeah, and again, that is Saturday, April 20th.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
All right. There being no further public comment, We are at commissioners' comments.
Madam Chair, I have two comments I'd like to make. The first is to just provide for an opportunity to correct the public record regarding some statements that were made at a previous town hall meeting. I just wanted to provide props and kudos to the Department of Public Works, who responded to a situation that was had in the fire department promptly, professionally, and very effectively, and that the town appreciates our Department of Public Works and that they are a vital part of keeping the town of Bel Air moving, and their work does not go unnoticed. Absolutely. The second, on a more lighter note, it was a real pleasure this past weekend to guide former Governor Larry Hogan on a walking tour of Main Street and some of the small businesses in downtown Bel Air. The former governor visited Independent Brewing Company, Apricot Lane Boutique, Sean Boland's Irish Pub, and Looney's. But what I really think was the highlight of the governor's visit was the 10 out of 10 that he gave the original chocolate chip cookie at Cozy Cookies, which is one of the stars of Bel Air's Armory Marketplace, which is just such an incredible incubator project for small businesses that come to Bel Air and really want to grow their vision. And Cozy is one of my favorites. Probably not my Waistlines favorite, but really just it was a great day to showcase Bel Air and the small businesses that we have here, and it was a wonderful day for the community, and I'm grateful that those small business owners got that opportunity.
I also love Cozy Cookies, and I am 100% certain they will be graduating to a full-service store. I hope that they remain in downtown Bel Air because I like to be able to walk, so I can excuse my eating their cookies by saying I got exercise. Secondly, Public Works is always cleaning up messes here and everywhere in town, and we do appreciate them a great deal. So you guys are great, as always. I have two other comments. One is regarding the budget. Another item that I'll be thinking about, and I would ask you to think about as we go through the budget process, is the rubberized surface that we're putting in the playgrounds. They are extremely expensive. I'm not sure that we should go all in on every playground until we've had some history with those to see how they hold up to the heavy use that I hope they're getting. And whether, based on some of our parks are more heavily used than others, do we want to do it everywhere? Secondly, those rubberized surfaces get really hot. Like everything has pluses and minuses. It's much easier to traverse if you have any sort of mobility issues, but they get very, very hot in the summer in the sunshine. So I am just have that in the back of my mind. The other commissioner's comment is there is a project that needs a signature for, we are partnering with the Downtown Alliance for a Project Restore 2.0 grant through the Department of Housing and Community Development. This grant is $300,000. We're applying for the maximum, or the Alliance is applying for the maximum. They need our signature on a letter as a supportive partner. It is going to be used to address the issues in the 3 historic properties located at 20 through 26 Office Street. I've walked past them. They desperately are in need of a tremendous amount of work, and this would be a tremendous appearance improvement in Bel Air. It would preserve the historic structure. It would add to the walkability and connect Bond Street to Main Street. So if the board is in support of this, I will sign it. So I am looking for input.
Please sign it.
Yeah.
Hear, hear.
All right.
Right, sounds like a good project, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
Okay.
I will take care of that immediately after this meeting.
Okay.
Any
I just-
other comments?
Yeah,
There you
I
go,
had a
Mr.
comment. I wanted to thank Michael Kranz and Christina Reinhardt and Public Works. I mean, the Kite Festival Saturday was a great success. This year, we did have wind. There was, there were over 750 kites distributed. And it's a success when you're out there spending most of your time untangling kites. So, they were flying and they were flying very well. So I want to thank everybody for that. It was a great event. Had so many compliments from people saying, they saw it on Facebook. If you look on Facebook, a lot of comments on it. So it was a great day out there for the kite flyers.
All right. Anything further?
I just wanted to, just join in the chorus of support for the Department of Public Works. I took that as a total grain of salt, that comment, been around the block a few times, feeling pressure in desperate situations. I didn't take any gospel truth to those comments. Director Klein, your team's always been on the ball, and you know, I'm grateful for you as a resident here in Bel Air.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no additional comments, we will be.
Gosh, I'm going
Go
to
ahead.
jump in here.
Absolutely.
As I look over here at the talented people that we have working every day for the town, obviously, we all know how much Public Works does and the police department. But I think some of us don't have, well, hopefully this board understands that, but how hard the other members that are sitting across this hall from us work every day, hard, have their heart and soul into it every day, and I appreciate every single one of you. So, no, Lisa, you're not out there directing traffic, and Angela, you're not out there writing tickets or stopping an accident from happening, and Mr. Kevin Small, you have a huge job, and I appreciate every single one of you. So thank you for your hard work every day. Thank you.
Particularly apt in the midst of this budget season. It still boggles the mind how down to the penny a small team can balance a $20 million budget. And it is really an amazing achievement, and we are very blessed to have the staff that we have in the town of Bel Air.
It is no small feat to do, especially in this economic climate. So, last on our agenda is the closed session. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that this meeting will be closed under the provisions of the Maryland Open Meetings Act, General Provisions, Article Section 3-305B1. The topics of discussion include the interview of the Planning Commission candidates for appointment, and to discuss the appointment of candidates to the Planning Commission. The reason for the closed session discussion of the above topics is because public discussion of candidates' names, qualifications, experience, and background could discourage people from volunteering for public service or compromise their privacy rights.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second.
All right.
Just give it to him.
I think, okay. Yeah. And, aye.
All right. Mr. Krantz? Vote.
To vote to move into closed session, Commissioner Rutledge.
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Chance.
Aye.
And Chair Edding.
Aye.
And do you plan on returning to an open session?
We will not be returning to
Just to-
open session after our closed session. We
Except
will be
to adjourn.
adjourning.
Okay.
There will be no more, except to adjourn, there will be no more public business conducted.
Okay.
Madam
The,
Chair, I'll be excusing staff because they're not.
Absolutely.
The YouTube live stream will be